Hello everyone, this is Cross and welcome to part 2 of our Roll20 D&D5e campaign creation guide. So what we're going to talk about is setting up the 5e shaped companion sheet. And we're in our API menu and I've installed a custom script called that I named 5e monsters. I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. We're going to install one right now called 5e spells. The reason why I did that off camera is because it actually takes quite a bit of time to load, and I didn't want you guys to sit through that. But these spells, however, do not. Now these, I will show you where you can start learning how to create these, and it's detailed in the shaped companion script outline. So we just hit save and we're waiting for that to load. It's started up. We're spinning up a new sandbox. And as a thing of note, if you're ever in your campaign and things just stop working, you need to come to this screen, and you don't have to necessarily leave the game. If you have this screen on a separate tab or something like that, you can always come to this screen and hit this button right here, Restart API Sandbox, and I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you'll see that everything's starting back up. And what you're looking for is spinning up new sandbox. And as everything loads, it's loading in all the APIs that we've installed, and there are no errors, so we're good to resume our campaign. Just keep that in mind. If anything just quits working and you know that you've installed it and it's worked before, it might just need a quick restart. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into our campaign. And I'm going to show you what it is that installed. Actually, we're going to go back and I'm going to show you, we're going to take a look at this outline. So the key features of the shaped character sheet companion. We are going to automatically create from Monster Manual stat blocks. That was what 5e monsters was for. Import spells, and that's what 5e spells that I just put in was for. Oh no, in fact, this JSON format, that's what we just put in, was the JSON format. So it was basically a database of spells and a database of monsters that we can import from. It's going to automatically give our NPCs the spells that they can potentially cast. If you're importing a caster that maybe has cure wounds or inflict wounds, that will already be on the character sheet as you pop it up. Now, this is probably one of the most critical features of this, and it's auto HP rolling on drop for monster tokens. Now, what that means is, if I have a creature and I want to use 2 or 3 of that creature in one fight, or just over the course of the campaign, this creature might keep popping up. If you pull that token out from your library, when that token hits the field, it's going to automatically roll its hit points so that token 1 and token 2 and token 3, each of them may have different hit points. So one of them might have 16 hit points, another one may have 23 hit points, and that means if the players hit one with an attack that maybe does 21 damage, one of them may die, but the other one may not die. And it kind of adds that little bit of flavor that certain creatures may be a little bit healthier than others. Other things that this can do is automatically configure your tokens so that if you like your tokens set up a certain way, when you import your monster, the token will go ahead and be set up in the way that you specify. And I will show you how to do that. The other thing that it does is automatically decrease your ammo if you use it. This is a feature that's it's nice if your table likes it. I personally don't use several of the auto features because I tend to like to have control over what my character sheet does after all the data has been put in there. This is a feature that I do use, and in 5th edition, when you roll your hit dice, it can automatically subtract from the hit dice that you use, and it will go ahead and add to your HP the health that you rolled. So that's something that I tend to use or not use, kind of depending on the situation. What I don't use is advantage tracking commands, and I'll show you why in a minute. I don't like to toggle between advantage and disadvantage. I just like to always have the Roll2 set, and I'll show you that. And then we can create token actions. I'll show you how you can select your token and have a range of things that you can select just by having the token created. And primarily this is for DMs who have several different creatures to manage. One of them may have a longbow attack, another one may have a claw attack, and you should be able to just click on that token and click claw attack without having to kind of go into the character sheet and manipulate it from there. Short, long rest handling. If your campaign is using the standard short, long rest options, this is a great feature. However, my campaigns tend to have a variant rule on the long rest, and so it doesn't quite work for me. And I wish that the author would allow us to essentially tell the script what we want to have happen when these buttons are selected. As you use your traits, it will go ahead. It can, if you set it, it can go ahead and use those traits. And just like monsters, you can potentially have new characters configured to the way that you want it. So these are the features that this offers. That's a lot of features, and with all those features requires quite a bit of instruction on how all of these things are going to happen. So optional extras, and this is what I just installed, is some of the script commands allow you to import spells or monsters from custom data files. That is what I installed, was a custom data file. 5e monsters and 5e spells were both custom files. These custom files is beyond the scope of the README, so instructions is not really found here. However, this is somewhat of an example here. If you go ahead and send Lucian, I believe it's Lucian that created this. Yes, Lucian created the Roll20 shaped companion. And he says that if you send him a private message here, and there's a link there to do so, containing your email address, so don't send him a message, send him your email address. If you want some guidance on installing these useful extras, I suggest that you do this. Send him that email. Send him your email address. That's all you have to have in the field is your email address, and tell him you want help on installing some useful extras. And he sent me back an email within, I would say, about 24 hours. I might have sent the email a little late, but he seems to be still very active in responding to these emails. Again, I say this is something that you want to do to help create your 5e monsters and 5e spells API installation that I just did. And all of this is instructions on how to import a monster. Stat block text. These are all important things that you can kind of go through. Learning this API is just a matter of picking a subject and kind of mastering that subject one thing at a time, but I'm here to help you learn a little bit quicker. So, what we are going to do is I'm going to show you full screen. We're going to take a look at my library here, and there's a few things that I already have installed from previous campaigns. You're not going to see this, but these are tokens where we have taken art from various points on the internet. Some of them are D&D created art, but and some of them are art from DeviantArt. I at the time, they were just for my personal use, and they still are. I'm not going to be providing these anywhere, but these are tokens that I used Photoshop to finish up. We're going to go ahead and pull this guy out, and he is a large creature. And so what you have to do is use these chat commands. I'm going to go ahead and move my chat commands so you can see what I'm typing. Now, to have this work, you have to have the token selected. If it looks like this, it's not going to work. This is selected. Okay, you see your 3 bubbles letting you know that it's selected. And according to the sheet that we had, we are actually, just to show you, we're just going to copy and paste that directly into the chat. And hit enter. When you do so, it brings up this, and you're going to want to click to select the monster. When you do so, it's going to use that JSON file that we put in to give you a list of creatures, and we are looking for the Chul. Type in CHU, and that appears. That's the creature we want. We're going to submit that, adding the following monsters Chul. You'll see that you indeed got that successful. It's done, but it's not actually finished importing yet. I'm going to hold down Shift and double click the token. What that does is it brings up the character sheet for the creature. And if you click character sheet, you will see it has an import button. When you click that import button, just give it a second, and it's going to import all the features from that JSON file that we put together. And there we have our creature. Okay. However, if you look, you'll see that his hit points is in bar 1. You'll see his sight. This is something I actually haven't figured out how to fix yet. In D&D, they tend to have a 60-foot sight radius, and for some reason when you import the monsters, it gives them an extra 10 feet. That I haven't been able to troubleshoot just yet. But things that I want is for the players to be able to see the health bar of the creature. I don't want them to see the nameplate, so that is correct. The players cannot see the nameplate. If this is checked, the DM can see the nameplate, but not the players. For the players to see player permissions, you have to have this box checked. So he has sight. He can see this far. Great, you have this token. However, there's an issue with the way that this is set up. And if I bring out another token here, and this token represented an NPC named Terry at one point, so I'm just going to name him Terry. Now, so this represents a PC now, and you see his name tag is down here on the bottom. But if you get down here, you see how the health bar sort of goes into the space of the other creatures. So if they're attacking from the north side, and if he were to be dealt damage, let's just deal, let's say, about 15 damage. See, you kind of cover up that health bar. So what I like to do is instead move the health bar. I'll show you what that looks like. I'm just typing this in for right now. It's not going to matter in the long run. If you notice, if you move the health bar down to the third bar, it remains within his space. And so if we delete this, that looks a little cleaner. His name tag still goes into his space. That's not anything that you can fix. But this will be the only on the players. So from a player standpoint, this is what they'll see. Their name tag, and they'll be able to clearly see the HP of the monster. Well, I didn't do any of that. So how do we get Shaped Companion Sheet to function the way that we want it to? And I was going to type it in, but let me just stay here and we will go look for it in the setups guide. And there it is. We're trying to run shaped config from the chat window. All right, there's shaped config. We're going to go ahead and hit enter. And there's our menu. This menu here will tell us everything that we need to know. So if you go through this menu, you can customize it. So we are going to start with viewing the advantage tracker. Let's just go one step at a time. And you notice it just keeps sending you messages. So right now we're here. The advantage marker, the disadvantage marker. None of these things, I don't use these, so I don't need to configure these. But just showing you that that's where that is. Token defaults. So here you can have it where it numbers the tokens. If you have more than one token out at the same time, you could click that on. I don't do that. I do show the name tag. So what that means is it's going to automatically check this box for you so that it shows you the name of the creature when he comes out. Show name to players. If that was checked on, then this box here would already be checked when you import the monster. The light radius, we're not going to mess with this because, as you saw, even with it not set, it gave me a sight radius for the creature because he has dark vision in his character sheet. Other players see the light. We want that off by default. It automatically will have sight. Normally, you would have to go into here and check all these boxes and fill all this data in. We play with the 360-degree rules in 5th edition where a token sees all the way around him. There's no facing. Token bar options. This is the first thing we're looking for that's very important. So you remember when we first imported the monster, his HP or his bar looked something like this. Well, that is because in the shaped configuration, the token bar options, the first bar had the hit points, the second bar has the speed. So there would be the speed of the creature, 30. Well, as I said, I wanted to move the HP to bar 3, so I'm going to click on the attribute in bar 3. As you see, a input value comes up, and all you're trying to do is trade HP. It says it in bar 1 right now. You're just trying to move HP, the field HP, down to bar 3. See how they match? And you want the max. You want the maximum attribute to be clicked on. So I clicked on. Now, what does that mean? In your token, you see how it says 87 of 102. Well, 102 was his maximum hit points before I dealt that damage to him. With max on, it will just input that value here so that it will give it a bar. If it's off, it will not input a value here and therefore just leave it blank so that it doesn't create a bar. Notice the speed doesn't have a bar. If I were to put 30 in here, it would create that second bar. That's not what we want. So the three main things that I look for on a monster when I'm using it is its hit points, its speed, and its armor class. So I'm going to put AC, capital AC, submit. Notice it changed to AC. I don't need to know the max of the AC. I don't need a bar for that. I just need to reference the value. So I'm going to click max off so that this is now how everything should look. Now, I wanted to show the hit point bar to my players, so I'm going to change bar 3 from off to on just by clicking. I don't want the speed. I don't want that linked. In fact, I don't want anything linked. What linked means is if you have two creatures of the same type, so if I had two of these creatures on the field, if it was linked, if I changed that value on one, it would change it on both. If it's not linked, it is it's only regards to that specific token. The reason why I want everything off is because if I change the hit points on one token, I don't want them changing on all the tokens. If the speed changes for one token, for instance, if it gets some sort of haste buff or if it gets its speed cut down in half, then you want to be able to make those adjustments if possible. If the AC of a creature, if someone removes the armor of a creature somehow, cuts it off, or does something, then his AC will drop, but only that creature's AC will drop, not the other creature's. So, this is how I set up my token bar options here. And the aura options are here. We don't want to set any specific aura on a creature by default. So we're just going to leave that the way that it is. New characters. We want the output. Let me scroll up. We want this says apply to all new characters. What this means is normally, the way that it's set up right now is it will only apply to a creature that you've imported. So right now, only monsters that we import will have this setup. And that's fine. You want the players to be able to set it up the way that they want. However, I personally like to roll my monsters in the private GM status, mostly because it helps so that the players just don't see the details of what's going on. They still have to figure it out. If not, if I were to, for instance, go into this creature, let's see if he has anything. His pincer attack, it would show that the escape DC is 14. It would show these values, and it would show the exact detail of what's going on. This is not something that I want the players to see. I want them to be sort of in suspense. I want to describe it to them. I don't want them to have to read it and essentially kill the immersion because, then now they know every detail about what this attack is doing. So we are going to click Sheet, Public, and we're going to change Public to Whisper. What that's going to do is whisper to the DM. We are going to change all three of these to Whisper. And actually, it says Sheet Standard. That's what you're changing here. The Sheet output will be Whisper, so you don't actually have to change these. These can be Sheet Standard, because the standard is to whisper to the DM. Show name on roll template? Sure. Roll options: normal, advantage, disadvantage, or roll 2. I always roll 2. I'm changing this to roll 2. The reason why I roll 2 is because if you go ahead and just roll 2 dice, there's no need to double click anything. There's no need to do anything. If you forgot to tell somebody they have advantage or disadvantage, or if they went ahead and clicked their attack and then it was determined that they had disadvantage after the fact, It's just better to just go ahead and roll 2 dice all the time. Let's see. Next thing. Initiative rolls are generally done normally. They tend to not have advantage. We want the initiative to go to the tracker. We don't want to show the AC of the target or the target's name or anything. That's not necessary. Default token actions. What this can do is give your token, when you click on it, some things to click on as this token is clicked, and I will show you that in a minute. But right now, we are going to look. We don't want the advantage tracker. We can token action. We want initiative, so that if we click on this token and need to add it to the initiative tracker, we'll have a button to press. Ability checks, and it's more important that you kind of have this on rather than which one. I tend to use very short. That's just my preference. You can go through them and determine which one you like best. We don't want rest, attacks. We want spells, and we want the stat block to be on. Actions. This is where I do individual actions. And then I tend to leave these off because they're specialties, and I can just find those on the character sheet if I need them. So, take a look again. This is how I set up the default token actions. Character sheet enhancements. Okay, roll hit points on drop. That's what I talked about before. We want this. We want processing hit dice automatically. What I don't like is processing the spell slots automatically. Sometimes I click a spell just to read its text, and I don't need it to be automatically taking away my spell slots when I didn't actually cast the spell. And then I'm not going to process the traits automatically. So this will be the default for the character sheet enhancements tab. On, off, off. House rule invariant. This has to deal with the long rest. I don't change this, but if your table in fact does not recover hit points and gives full hit dice on a long rest, then you want to check this on. This is not what we do on our table. So, in fact, we don't even use the standard rules either. So we don't have a button to press at our table. We just have to do it manually, which is fine. Just kind of reviewing real quick. So we have gone through the entirety of the shaped sheet configuration. So now let's see what we accomplished. This is the creature that we originally did. We are going to go ahead and bring another creature in. We can use the swarm of bats as an example. So as we did before, we want to shaped import monster, and it requires that exclamation point at the beginning. So we're going to hit enter. Now note that I had my token selected when I hit enter. We're going to click to select a monster, SW, oops, and we are looking for swarm of bats. We're going to hit submit. Just as before, we have the verification that we imported the swarm of bats. We have to hold down shift and double click to bring up the character sheet. And we have to click the import button. This is what you need to do every time you import. Make sure you do this first. And now we have our swarm of bats. Excellent. Now remember, we changed it so that bar 3 would be the hit points. It automatically put that on bar 3. A player will be able to see bar 3. That automatically went in there. Excellent. We have, we have a an AC of 12. Let's verify that that's correct. Armor class is in fact 12. And the speed is 0. The swarm of bats do not have a walking speed, they have a fly speed. So that is why the speed of 0 is there. But it's kind of just like an easy reference. Now, one thing you have to do is after you import, you need to, sometimes not all of the defaults that you selected go into the creature. Remember, we had individual actions selected. And when I look up here, I see the saves, I see the stat block, I see the initiative. If I click this initiative button, I click, it rolls initiative. Excellent. If I bring up the tracker, it's there on the initiative. I'm going to remove all turns. And we can click initiative, and there it's rolling its initiative. The same, now notice that the tool that we imported before does not have those buttons. It's because we imported it before we set up all the defaults. So if you import monsters before you set up the defaults, your old monsters will not be set up the way that you want them to. This creature is useless to me. So I'm going to delete him, and I'm going to delete edit. I'm going to delete the tool. Goodbye, tool. And we are going to find him again. It's faster to just re-import him than to fix him. We are doing the shaped import monster again. Clicking this, selecting a monster. We want our tool to be working the way that we want him to. We imported, shift, double left click, go to character sheet and import. This needs to be an immediate thing that you do. All right, we are fully imported. We're going to check. Okay, nice. He has his HP on bar 3, which is where we wanted it. Now if our guy stands there, his HP is below. His AC is a 16 and his speed is a 30. I know this just by clicking on the creature. I now know this fact, so if our friend walks over here and attacks the swarm of bats, I'll know that the AC of the swarm of bats is a 12. Excellent. But our actions are still not there. What's going on? There is a slight delay from the time that you import the monster to the time so essentially when you import the monster and it puts in all of the custom data, but before you click import, it tries to apply as defaults, and at the time it doesn't have these actions listed here because you haven't clicked import yet, so it doesn't know to use those. Well, now they're in there. So how do we get them in there? We're going to use a command called shaped-apply-defaults, and we're going to go ahead and click that on the tool. Nothing happened. Well, did nothing happen, or do we think nothing happened? When we click up here, we see his multi-attack, we see his pincer, we see his tentacle attack, and when we click this, it shows we're in fact whispering to the GM when we use these abilities as we set, and it gives you the detail of this attack. When we use our pincer, it gives us the attack roll. Remember, we rolled 2. What you want to do is, if he neither has advantage or disadvantage, you want to use just the first number that's rolled, the one on the left. So right there, he critically failed his attack. Right there, he rolled a 20 to hit. If he had disadvantage, we would have instead used the lower of the two numbers. The 14 would have been the lower of the two numbers. If he had advantage, we would still use the 20. Check again. If we had disadvantage, we would use the 15. If we were rolling regular, we would use the 15. If we had advantage, we would use the 20. Just understand what those three states mean and just apply it to what you see here. And he would be doing 9 damage. And you can see the math there when you mouse over that everything is working correctly. If I need to see his stat block, I can click here, click stat block, and his entire stat block will appear in chat, as you can see. You can see his traits, amphibious, sense, magic. So you can pull up the stat block and have all these links. I can roll skills from here. All of these are links, so if I were to click perception, it would give me a perception roll. If I were to click amphibious, it would tell me what amphibious can do. It's very useful for managing a creature without having to pull up his actual character sheet. Excellent. We can see that his average hit points are a 93. However, our Chul, as you can see, has 93 hit points. When you first import a monster, sometimes he just has the natural hit points, sometimes he doesn't. I always suggest you import the monster, and then we've selected everything. So let us try. We're going to just remove this guy off the field and pull a new one in. Now he has 101 hit points. Check our chat log. When you pulled the creature in, it says hit points rolled and tells you that he rolled 101 hit points and that his average would have been 93. So we have a better than average Chul for the party to fight. We pull out another one. This one has 83 hit points. So if you were to play these against the players, one of them would have 101 hit points, the other one would have 83 hit points. Excellent. So there will be a slight variation in these creatures. Notice that when I apply damage to one, it does not apply to the other. If those stats were linked like we saw before, then the damage would apply to both of them. In fact, they would have the same hit points because they would be linked. We can verify that everything is correct. He has a sight. You can see bar 3 and the 2 auras. Excellent. So these two creatures are ready. What about our swarm of bats? Individually, you're going to have to apply the default. Shaped apply defaults to these creatures. Click off, click back on, and he has his bites. So if I were to click bite, you would see we're getting a lot of critical fails. We have got our bite. We can click saves, and if he needs to make a dexterity save, click that. There's our saving throw. So, excellent. Now we have creatures for us to fight. But what about our spells? So if you have, let's create a new character. This guy's good. And we are going to create, let's try a wizard. And we're just looking at the spells right now, so when you're creating a new character, immediately go to the cog, and you want to check this roll 2 button, and that will allow your character to roll 2, just like your monsters do. Every time you roll, you'll be able to roll 2. And you just apply it based on whether or not you have advantage, disadvantage, or you're just making a standard roll. You'll want to go ahead and check passive skills. Check this on all your players so that you can see, now that you can see all your passives for all of your skills. Most importantly, perception. You'll be able to see the passive perception. And there are a few things on here you can do to your liking. The sheet changes quite often. New features are constantly being implemented. In fact, this is something I have yet to see, multiple inspiration. I don't know if that's new or if it's been there and just haven't seen it. But this is something I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and check this and see. Our game tends to use more than one inspiration dice, so this is actually perfect for us. We can have our 3 inspiration, 2 inspiration. Excellent. I'll have to apply that to my campaign. So, just go through this, set it up the way that you want it. You can do some cool things with the bonuses and penalties here. A life cleric, for instance, heals extra when they heal. So this would be where you put that bonus in there, and there's a specific command that you can do to make that account for the way it's 2 plus your spell level that you cast. So if you cast a first level spell, you would heal for 3 additional hit points. If you cast a second level spell, it would be 4 additional hit points. So how do you make that happen? Well, when you cast first, I guess we should change him to a cleric since we're talking about cure wounds. And what I like to do is I like to have my spells tab. So I click spells tab and there's my spells tab. Excellent. So let's import cure wounds. The command for this is shaped spell, and all of these commands will be listed in the description below. And just like Monster Importer, okay, so I have an error. Just like Monster Importer. Let's see what happened here. This is the problem. We're not representing a character. This token is not representing anything. So we need to make this token represent our new character. There we go. Now let's try it. There we go. Now we can import a spell into the character token. So we have to have it represent our character. Now this name can change all you want. You can cut it down so that it's not as overbearing, so to speak. But as long as it's representing this character sheet, we can go ahead and import. So we are clicking our token, like we do with any import. We are clicking to import a spell. We want to import Cure Wounds. There's Cure Wounds. Submit. Just like with Monster Import, we want to hold down Shift, double left click, pull up our character sheet. Our import button is here. There's Cure Wounds. Excellent. We're going to click off of edit mode and notice it is grayed out. If you want to prepare, you hit the cog wheel, click this prepared button, close it back, hit the pencil. Now we have it looking like it is prepared. Excellent. So let's click Cure Wounds. And Cure Wounds, and it says as 1. And it healed for, it rolled 5. We have no bonuses to wisdom because our stats are currently set to 10. If we, for instance, took a 16 wisdom, and then now we clicked Cure Wounds, say, should be +3. And it is not +3. What happened? the first thing I would look for is that it heals 1d8 plus and there's a dash. Our wisdom did not get selected. Why is that? When we imported, we didn't have the ability, our spellcasting ability selected. So we're going to go ahead and select wisdom. That is a cleric spellcasting ability. Notice when I put this in, that it changed your spell for you. That is new. You used to have to go through and fix them all. So now when we click Cure Wounds, it now has, it rolled a 3 and added 3 for a total of 6. Excellent. Things are working the way that they're supposed to. Just because something's not working doesn't mean that it's the sheet's fault. You have to know where to look to figure out why it's not doing the thing that you want it to do. Well, now I'm a life cleric. Well, how do I get my extra 2 plus my spellcasting level? How does that work? Well, I am not going to go into too much detail. However, the first thing you can do is put just a 2 in there and just say it's, you know, I'm casting as a first level, so just add 1. Have some surprise music. I am going into another campaign right now, and I'm looking at a healer to go ahead and grab the command from the other character sheet so that I make sure and do it correctly. So the correct way to do that is how I put it in here. 2 plus, and then it says question mark, and then in curly brackets, spell level. What does this mean? We are adding 2 plus, and what we are doing is trying to find out what spell level we're casting at. In this case, for Cure Wounds, it would be spell level 1. So if we cut and paste this into our heal, and I'm hitting enter, and now it's located in our character sheet. Now when I go into spells and cast Cure Wounds, I can input a spell level. I want to cast it at spell level 1. Notice it healed for 9. Well, I rolled a 3. It added, let me get it to where you can see it. I rolled a 3. It added 3 for my wisdom. It added another 2 plus 1. And that is for a life cleric. You add 2 plus a spell level. In this case, it was spell level 1. But what if I cast it at spell level 2? Well, let's try it. I'm a level 1 cleric. I'm not sure if this is going to let me. It did. However, it still says as 1. I can't cast as a level 2 cleric. So this is a flaw with this fact. Well, let's up our character level a little bit and see what happens. Let's go to level 3. That's when you can cast second level spells. Let's see what happens. Spell level 2. Now it's giving us our extra d8 roll. When you cast as a second level spell, you get 2d8 plus 3. And then if you're a life cleric, you get 2 plus 2. And this is a really good roll, healing for 20 hit points. Excellent. So everything is working like it's supposed to. We have our importing a monster. We have We have importing a monster. We have importing spells. We can populate our NPCs from JSON. We can auto HP roll. We have configured our token setup for defaults. But let's see if we can deal damage to ourselves and heal with the hit dice. So let's just give ourselves 20 hit points. And we have 3 of 3d8 hit dice right here. All right, so let's take 10 damage. And notice that as I edit this, not doing anything to our character. We didn't import this character. We are creating this. So for players, I tend to do the same thing that I would normally do. I set this field to HP. It's going to link to this character sheet. I set this field to speed. And I'm just typing these words in as why it's jumping to them. And then the green bar I set to AC. So we haven't input a speed in yet. Let's do so. I'm going to input 25 feet because we're dwarf. It's like, I believe their speed is 25. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't play dwarves. But you notice that as I edit on this sheet, 15 hit points, our hit points are changing on the token as well. And likewise, should happen. Now, when you're editing on the token, you can hit +5, and it will add 5 to the value. So if you're sitting at max health and your DM tells you, take 4 damage, you don't have to 20 minus 4 and come up with 16. Just very quickly, just type -4, and there you go. Your total is in there. So, or you can type in a value and hit enter, and it will change it to that value. Excellent. So now we have 10 hit points, and we've finished, and we've completed a long rest. Let's see what happens when we spend 2 hit dice. I will submit. Notice we healed for 11, but our maximum hit points was 20. So that 1 overhealing didn't go past our maximum hit points. Excellent, that's what we want. We had 3d8, 3 out of 3. Now we have 1 because we spent 2. Now we have 1. So that processed automatically. Notice we didn't have to change anything. So excellent. We now have automatic hit dice management. So, if there's anything else that you wish to know about the shaped companion script, feel free to let me know. One of the other things that you can do is go to macros, and we're going to create a macro. It's going to be called the spell importer. What we want to do with this is go ahead and type in our command shaped spell with the exclamation point and the hyphen in between. You're going to save. What does this do? It allows us to click this, and then we are going to click our macro, and it gives us our shaped spell that we can import all these spells from. That's important because you don't want your players to have to mess with these commands. You want to provide them for them. And what you can do is, as a DM, is set up these macros for these commands that you want them to be able to use. And then visible to players optional, you can set it up to all players. So now any player that joins this game will have a macro in their box that says spell importer. And if you teach them how to use it, if they're a wizard, if they're a cleric, if they're a druid, bard, whatever, any kind of spellcasting class, then they can go ahead and click this on their token and import whatever spell that they have access to. Excellent. In that same vein, we want to import our monsters pretty frequently. We don't want to have to type this out or go find it every time. So we're going to call this monster importer and put this token in there. This does not need to go to the players, so we're not going to change this. We're going to activate this. Now if I were to bring in water weed, large creature as well, go to our macros, click our token, make sure our token is active. As you can see, it is. Monster importer, take a look, monster import. You're going to click here, and when I click here, I just start typing water. Notice elemental came up, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow. Water weird is there. Submit. What do we do when we import a monster? Hold down shift, double click, bring up a sheet, import. And it is finished. Now we have our water weird that we can play with. If you were to bring in any other types of tokens, you would be able to, using your monster importer macro instead of having to type it out all the time. There is a list of macros that I'm going to be going over. These are 2 of them in a later video that's further on in this guide, and I will include these macros and those others all in the description below of that video. I hope that this video has shed some light on the complexities of the shaped companion script. I know this video is a little long, but there's a lot of stuff to go over. And if you enjoyed this content, if you found some sort of relief, some sort of inspiration from it, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel. I hope that you will continue watching these videos throughout the guide and be able to feel confident in both your purchase of the Pro subscription of Roll20 and going into a D&D 5th edition game with some knowledge that you are in fact fully prepared for this game. And not a lot of underestimation can be said about going into a game with that confidence, knowing that everything is set up correctly, knowing that you have these tools available to you, knowing that if you had to improvise, there's a method to quickly improvise and quickly make these things happen on the fly, that it doesn't take hours and hours to prepare for a session. If you looked, we had creatures created, we had NPCs available to created. The next thing we need is a map to play on. We will go over that in another video as well. So, thank you for watching, and hopefully you will watch the next set of videos.